My best friend's father changed my life. My name's Rebecca Harper. I'm 30 years old, and I live in Portland, Oregon. The kind of city where it rains more than it shines. And somehow, that fits me perfectly. Last year was supposed to be the year everything clicked. I had a steady job at a design firm, a small apartment downtown, and a plan to maybe start my own business one day. Then, within 6 months, everything unraveled. The company downsized. I was one of the cuts. My boyfriend at the time decided we were going different directions, and my landlord decided to sell the building. By the time summer came, I had 3 boxes of belongings, a bruised ego, and nowhere to go. That's when Emily, my best friend since high school, called. "Come stay at my dad's place for a while," she said. "He's got the space, and you need a break." Her father, Daniel Lawson, was a retired contractor who lived outside the city in a quiet town called Hillsboro. I'd met him a few times, kind, reserved, the kind of man who always called everyone kiddo, even at 55. I didn't want to impose, but when you've run out of options, pride becomes a luxury. 2. The house in the rain. Daniel's house sat on a hill surrounded by tall cedar trees. The first night I arrived, rain was tapping the windows like it always does in Oregon. He met me at the door, towel in hand. "Welcome home, kiddo." I laughed. "It's temporary." He nodded. "Aren't most good things?" The guest room smelled faintly of pine and coffee. He'd set out clean sheets, a little note on the nightstand. "You're safe here. Get some rest." That first night, I cried, not from sadness, but from relief. 3. Routine and restlessness. Days slipped into routine. I helped Daniel with small chores, organizing his garage, repainting the porch, running errands. In exchange, he refused to let me pay rent. "Consider it an internship in fixing your life," he said. He woke at 6 a.m. every morning, made 2 cups of coffee, one for him, one for me. We'd sit on the porch in our hoodies, watching fog lift off the trees. He didn't talk much, but when he did, it mattered. One morning he said, "You've got too much talent to be waiting for someone to hire you. Build something yourself." I laughed. "Like what?" "Whatever keeps you awake at night thinking about it." I hadn't realized until then that design still did. 4. Small steps. I started freelancing again. Small poster jobs, brand logos, whatever came my way. Daniel built me a little desk by the window. "Every creator needs a corner," he said. He'd bring tea while I worked, and quietly tinker in the garage. Sometimes, we'd share dinner, and talk about everything from sports to books. He told me about losing his wife to cancer years ago, about how Emily was his anchor through grief. I told him about my fear of failure, of not being enough. He said, "Failure's not the opposite of success, Rebecca. It's the soil it grows in." I wrote that line down. 5. The gossip. Hillsboro was small enough that everyone knew everyone. A few neighbors started asking why I was living there. Some assumed I was his assistant. Others whispered that I was taking advantage of his generosity. When I told Emily, she rolled her eyes. "People love drama more than truth. Ignore them." Daniel just smiled. "If they're talking, it means they're not living enough themselves." Still, I felt the sting of judgment. But then I remembered. His man had lost a wife, raised a daughter alone, built a life out of nothing. If he didn't care what people thought, why should I? 6. The garden project. In spring, Daniel decided to build a community garden for local kids. He asked me to design a mural for the fence. It became our shared project. He handled the construction. I handled the art. Every Saturday, kids from the neighborhood came to plant vegetables, laugh, and get paint on their clothes. Watching them, I realized how purpose quietly heals you. You stop counting your losses and start building something new. One afternoon, Daniel looked at the finished mural, bright blues and yellows swirling into a sunrise, and said, "You did that." I shook my head. "We did." He smiled. "Exactly." 7. The offer. A month later, Daniel's old friend who managed a construction supply company saw my design work at the garden. He offered me a full-time position managing their branding. It wasn't glamorous, but it was stable and creative. When I told Daniel, he beamed. "See, you just needed a corner and a little faith." That night, I made dinner to celebrate. He toasted with iced tea and said, "To new starts. They don't always look like fireworks. Sometimes, they look like peace." 8. Saying goodbye. The day I packed to move into my new apartment, Daniel helped load boxes into my car. He paused and said, "You came here lost, and now you're leaving found. I'm proud of you, kiddo." I hugged him. "You saved me." He shook his head. "You saved yourself." I just kept the porch light on. When I drove away, I looked in the mirror at his small figure waving goodbye, and realized some people enter your life, not to stay, but to steady you. 9. 1 year later. A year later, the garden was thriving. I visited every few weeks, bringing supplies, and catching up with Daniel and Emily. He'd always greet me the same way. "Look at you, Miss Designer. Remember when you thought you were done?" I'd laugh and say, "I still think that some days." He'd reply, "Then keep working. Fear hates movement." That became our inside joke. Anytime life felt uncertain, we'd say, "Keep moving." 10. Full circle. Now it's 2026. I'm 31, with my own small design studio, a stable home, and peace I never thought I'd find. I still visit Daniel often. We drink coffee on the porch, watching the fog lift, just like before. Last week he told me, "You remind me of my younger self, restless, but resilient." I said, "Then I learned from the best." He laughed. "No, you just finally believed you were enough. And maybe that's the truth. Because sometimes, love isn't romantic. Sometimes it's a friend, a teacher, a mentor. Someone who shows up quietly, stays long enough to remind you of your worth, and then steps back while you shine." My name's Rebecca. My best friend's father changed my life, and that's a story I'll never stop being grateful for. End of story.